Okay, y'all, I am back. So we left off with John Mark Carr took her down to the basement. I believe that's when she's in her blankets and stuff, and he carries her. I believe, down in the basement is where he stun guns her again, or for the first time on her face or her back, turns her around, stun guns her, just to give that leeway of time where she's kind of like, I'm not really sure what a stun gun does to you. Does it make you pass out? Are you just incapacitated for a few minutes? I believe he used that time when he stun gunned her to make the garrote and to put it around her neck, tie her hands above her head. He used that time to do all of that. Broke the paintbrush, made that. I believe that she started to wake up. So that's when he started using, unfortunately, he started using the garrote as a control mechanism so she wouldn't scream, so she wouldn't cry, so he could just, experts, police, even Boulder police, different people have stated in different documentaries and the media that it was kind of used as a control mechanism. So the more he put on there, the more he could control with, whatever she was doing. Now, he does state in his confession that he didn't mean to hurt her, that he was using this, again, as a control and as a sexually way, like an asphyxiation kind of thing. And then what's strange is he realizes, well, from what he says, that he's pulling too hard, and poor baby, she's convulsing, and he realizes he does kill her. That's when it's like, oh crap. He says, Jonbenet, are you okay? Are you okay? Her poor little body's convulsing, and it's sick. It's so sick. I hate to even have to repeat these things, but this is what I'm quoting from, what he said in the tapes, and the new Netflix documentary To the Professor. These were his words. That after that, when he realized that she wasn't breathing, she wasn't moving, he couldn't risk leaving her there and then her, still be alive and ultimately, tell on him, or this was the guy that did it. So he said in the series that he covers her face with the blankets. Before he did that they stated that they could not find the duct tape anywhere in the house, that the Ramseys did not have a roll of black duct tape, that it was found nowhere in the Ramsey house. If you listen carefully, he said that on his flashlight, there was black duct tape around his flashlight, and that he ripped that duct tape off of the flashlight and placed it over her mouth. He then put up the covers to cover her little face, and he used that flashlight, and he said he just bludgeoned her in the head. I don't know how many times, but he bludgeoned her enough to crack her skull, which the autopsy found. Now, a lot of people are confused about, with the autopsy report, that what came first, the strangulation or the blow to the head. Now, if we listen to this theory, the strangulation came first because they had marks. She had fingernail marks around her neck. Now, if the blow came first, she would have been incapacitated to be able to do that, to reach for the garrote. So what he says makes sense. I mean, it completely, if you picture it and imagine it in your mind, it completely makes sense that he strangles her first. She's out. She's passed out or even dead. And then covers her little face and uses that flashlight to bash her over the head after she's already dead. That's why there was no bleeding um, with a blow to the head that bad, there would have been some kind of blood or gashed open, blood on the floor or something. I mean, if you're hit over the head, you're going to bleed. But experts say the reason why there was no blood is because she was already dead. And then after you die, you don't have that. It congeals or whatever, and you don't have that. So that definitely makes sense, that he covered her, hits her in the head, realizes, oh, she's gone. I don't know at what point did he leave the ransom note that he already wrote on the stairs, in 1, 2, 3 on the bottom of the spiral staircase. Could he have left that before he takes her downstairs? Just in case, he's down there and the parents wake up and see the notes already there. Because I believe after he murdered her, that he wouldn't have had the balls or, the audacity. He didn't have that to go back up from the basement upstairs and leave the ransom note perfectly next to each other for Patsy to find it that next morning, or when it became time that she woke up. So he possibly could have done that before he takes her down to the basement, which makes a lot of sense. The audacity is what I'm trying to say. Excuse me. So he had to make it quick. He had to get out of there. He was already down there in the basement. Now, if you remember the crime scene photos and the docuseries and things like that, that basement door or that cellar door had a little latch at the top. That's why initially Detective Officer French, the first officer on scene, went down to the basement but saw that little thing up there. It was a latch that just latched like this. It was latched. He didn't even move the latch to open the door to see if there was anything in there because the latch was really high up on the door. It wasn't until later that Fleet White, John Ramsey's friend, goes in there. He touches the latch. He was the first person that I'm aware of that touched the latch and opened the door. But it was too dark. He didn't know where the lights were to see her body, which was in the dark. I always wondered too, did the police ever dust? I've never heard anything on any kind of media or newspaper or nothing, or even in an interview. I've listened to John Ramsey talk and stuff, and I never heard anyone say, did they dust that latch? But again, I mean, even if they would have dusted, he was probably wearing gloves, like I said, the entire time. So even if they would have dusted that latch, there probably would have been nothing there. But unfortunately, like John Ramsey or Fleet White's fingerprints on it, because they're the ones that both touched the latch that morning when John Ramsey found his daughter. So their prints both would be on that latch. But again, if he's wearing gloves, nothing's going to be shown on there. So after he bludgeons her, he freaks out and, kind of panics to himself and like, okay, I got to get out of here. I think that he found that suitcase and put it in the window because he thought, oh, I'm really, really short, like how am I going to jump up into this window? As you can see in things, different stuff that Lou Smith, he was a really tall man and tall and skinny, and he was able to get in and out just fine. But for a little tiny guy like John Mark Carr, he would have had to stand on that suitcase and then, kind of lift himself up to get back out of the window, and then he just bolted for it. I do believe that's another reason why he lived in a different country, Thailand. He probably wanted to get as far away as he could from the U.S., just so he would never get caught. And then I don't know why. It just compelled him, I guess, years later, to start emailing this professor in Boulder. And, they start corresponding. They start talking. Everything's via email. And then eventually he starts calling him. And he says all of this stuff in that recording. And if you sit back and you just really kind of imagine it, which is a really horrible thing to do, but if you're imagining it word for word and putting the pieces together, then that truly makes sense of every little thing, of unexplained answers, unexplained questions that people have for decades now, of how did they do this? How did he do that? How did he, in what time did he have to do this? Well, it all lines up. The one thing that we need to go back to is, I believe that they need to retest him, or use the DNA that they took from him before and use all this new advancement to DNA and run it again. Run it again. Again, even after, they cleared him. He was on an interview. I recently watched it. He was on an interview and they asked him, had you ever been to the Ramsey house before, inside or there? And he goes, I can't say. Every little kind of question, how did you know Jonbenet? Did you meet her? I can't say. It's just so baffling. This case is just completely baffling to me. I pray really, really hard that we will have answers. Run the damn DNA again. John Mark Cars, run it. With whatever you have on all the pieces of DNA that wasn't yet tested. I heard somewhere that there's 7 more pieces of evidence that they still haven't tested. I think John Ramsey said that in the new documentary, that there's 7 pieces of untested DNA. Test it. Another kind of gross detail that I want to mention, that I remember John Mark Carr quoting on those tapes again in the Netflix documentary, is they found, when they did the DNA, they shined like a light, like one of those black lights, to look for blood or semen, and they found something on her upper thigh area that they ruled out not to be semen, but it was some kind of foreign DNA, an unidentified male DNA. Nobody, not including, doesn't include the Ramseys, so somebody outside of that. Now, if you listen closely in those recorded tapes, he does say he kissed her thighs, her inner thighs. He was kissing her in that area. Now, an expert said that DNA was not semen, but it could be saliva. Now, if that's true, I still don't know, why it didn't match. If that is, saliva from him kissing her in that area, then why doesn't it match? But it really just baffles me of, okay, it could have been his saliva. So we need to get him tested again. Even if they don't want to extradite him or whatever, and they just want to use new genealogy and new DNA to test him, please do it. I pray for that family. Unfortunately, Patsy passed away in 2006, and she will never know. She's with her daughter in heaven, and maybe somehow, she knows now, being in heaven. But I just pray for that family. I pray. John is like 81 years old, and every time I see that man, I just feel for him. My heart just goes out to him. He's getting older. His oldest son, John Andrew Ramsey, said that after John passes away or whatnot, that no matter what, he'll always keep the case going, and he'll always continue to fight until they find the murderer. But for John Ramsey's sake, he's been through so much. He's already 81. I just pray that, unlike Patsy, that he won't pass away not knowing, you know, the answer to who killed his beautiful daughter. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to my grave not knowing. It drives me crazy, and I'm just a person. No ties to the case or family whatsoever. I'm just, it's one of the cases that just drives me bonkers because I don't know. And it's like watching a movie. It's like watching a decades, 30-something year movie, and you rewatch the movie over and over and over again, but there's never an ending. So it just drives you mad not knowing who did this. Like, there has to be an ending to this, story. So I just pray. I pray to God. I pray that there will be some people that'll say, no, we're coming in and we're going to do this. Lou Smith's family has been wonderful. They made a promise to him and still work on this case. And this case will never be forgotten. And I just pray that it will be solved for the sake of John Ramsey and his family, and for justice to be done for that little girl. So thank you for listening to me rant. I would love to start some kind of like true crime YouTube channel or something to put more stories out there, and just to talk about my views of the case. I know there's so many of these YouTube videos and so many podcasts and stuff out there, but it just, it's like a passion of mine. I just really wish we could find who did this. So thanks for listening. Have a good night.